Hello, future homeowners. All right, need everybody to stand up for just a minute, and here's what I want you to do. That's it, stand up. I would like you to hold your arms out straight in front of you, palms facing each other, and clap once for me. All right, now open your arms up and invert your hands so that your thumbs are pointing down and the backs of your hands are facing each other. Raise your right hand and cross your wrists to where your right hand is laying over the top of your left wrist. Now, intertwine your fingers together. The biggest important thing here to remember is that your right thumb is hanging down on the outside of your hands. No, your right thumb. Your right thumb needs to be hanging down. Okay, now what I want you to do is take your two index fingers and point them forward. And just experience for a second how this feels. Does it feel a little cumbersome, a little clumsy, like you can't quite get out of this, like you don't know what to do? Then how come it is that sometimes people can so easily get themselves out of a situation while others feel like they're just totally tied up and they can't seem to get out of it? So one of the reasons for this, I believe, is knowledge. So the thing I'd like to talk today with you about is a little bit of extra knowledge on learning the rules of the game. Now, how many of you have ever sat down to a Monopoly game and known instantly what the rules were and how to play the game? And even if you read the rule book and knew the mechanics of the game, did you know the actual strategies for winning the game? The thing I'd like to talk to you today about is the rules of credit scoring. And we don't have that much time, so I'm not going to be able to get into them all, but I want you to get your pen and paper out. And at the end of this session, I'm going to give you all the opportunity to learn to have the rule book for credit scoring. So first thing I need you to do is to write down the first factor in credit scoring. There's a total of 5. We're only going to talk about 2 of them today. The first factor is going to be your payment history, of course. How well do you pay your bills? So write down number 1, payment history, and next to that, I want you to write down 35%. Got that? Payment history, 35%. The second factor, you will write down balance to limit. Balance to limit. And next to that, I want you to write down 30%. The remaining 3 factors are mix of credit, and that you're going to write down 10%. So mix of credit is 10%. And then you're going to write down length of credit, and that's going to be 15%. So length of credit is going to be 15%. The last factor, you should have about 90% worth of your credit score written down now. So the last factor will be inquiries. And inquiries will be 10%. So inquiries will be 10%. So the first 2 factors we're going to talk about is, of course, your payment history. Now, it would make sense to know that if you pay your bills on time, you should have really great credit. But the fact is that every single day I work with people, they have never made a late payment in their life, and they do not have 850 credit scores. 850 is the highest credit score you can get. So why would that be? How could they possibly come in with absolutely never making a late payment and still not having that perfect 850 credit score? And that 35% number that you wrote down means that your payment history is actually only 35% of your overall credit score. The next factor I want to talk to you about is your balance to limit, that next 30%. This one I like to talk about the longest because you have the most control over this. This allows you to get yourself in an upward position and pointing in the right direction. What this is talking about is how much of your credit card limit you owe in balance. So the less you owe towards your limit, the higher your credit score will be. The more you owe towards your limit, the lower your credit score will be. Now, I want you to write these numbers down. If you owe 10 to 30% of your credit card limit, so if your limit is $1,000 and you owe between $100 and $300, you're going to see your score go way up. If you owe 30 to 50% of your limit, so if you owed $300 to $500 of your $1,000 limit, you would see your score go up, but not quite as much. Once you owe 50 to 75%, or $500 to $750 of that $1,000 limit, you're going to start seeing your score go down. And if you owe 75 to 100% of your limit, or $750 to $1,000 of your $1,000 limit, you are going to see your score plummet. If you owe 1 penny more than your limit, and that gets reported on your credit report, you will see credit score death. I have seen this factor with the credit score system change somebody's score by over 150 points. And guess what? If you don't have a credit card at all, then you're going to lose 30% of your potential 850 points. That's 255 points of your score that will not exist. You will never see a score higher than 655 points if you do not have at least one credit card. Now here's another little key. In fact, this key, this secret, is going to be worth your entire day of this class. When you get your credit card statement in the mail, you will see an activity period. So you're going to see your activity was from this date to this date, and you need to make a minimum payment by this due date way out here. That statement ending date is the date that is going to get your balance reported on your credit report. So if on that date you owe $900 to your $1,000 limit, then you're going to see your score reduced. But when you look at your statement and know that statement ending date, if you will make your payment 3 or 4 days before that statement ending date, let that payment get posted so that your new balance is what gets reported to the credit bureaus, you will see your score increase like that. The credit scoring software is like it takes a picture of the data that's reported on your credit report. The minute that picture changes, the data changes, and therefore the score changes. Now, how often does that data change? As often as your creditors report to the credit bureaus. So just because you made a payment today doesn't mean that that creditor is going to report to the credit bureau tomorrow. That creditor, say like your Capital One Visa card, is going to report typically once a month. And that reporting date you will know by that statement ending date on your statements. So whatever information is on that date, you're going to see reported the next month when they report on that same date again. This is the one factor that you have the most control over. You determine how much you're going to put on that credit card. You determine what that balance is going to be when it gets reported, and you can control the destiny of your own credit score. The other 3 factors, the length of time you have your credit, the mix of credit, and the inquiries, we'll go into the next time. But everyone has a slip of paper in front of you with your name, address, and email address. And if you'll fill that slip of paper out and bring it up to me, in exchange for that, I will give you the credit scoring booklet. Now this is going to give you the mechanics to the credit scoring system. It's going to list out those 5 categories that we just talked about, and it's going to tell you some other information about fixing your credit report and disputing items that don't belong on there. This is your gift free. And the one thing that I can tell you is that nobody's going to care about your credit score as much as you. Let me tell you a little story. 35% of corporate America pulls a credit report before you even get called for a job interview. Some industries, your rate of pay is tied to your credit score. I had a nurse come in that I was working with on some financing, and she was working at our local hospital. She had moved up from a different state, and the hospital that she moved from, her rate of pay was tied directly to her credit score. And that's because that employer felt that if you had your financial house in order, you were going to be a much more productive employee at that hospital, not worrying about your personal finances, and so you should get rewarded with a higher rate of pay for being a more productive employee. Your car insurance premiums, landlords, rates on your credit cards, your loans are all tied to that credit score. And let me just tell you how important this credit score can be for you. In 2010, I had been in this industry for over 28 years, when suddenly they decided in order for me to continue to do my job, I needed to have a license. Now, in order for me to get the license, I had to take a 20-hour continuing education class. I had to pass a 100-question state exam. I had to pass a 100-question national exam. I had to go through a 10-year FBI background check. I had to get fingerprinted, and I had to have my credit report pulled. If after 28 years any one of those 6 things didn't pass, my career was over. I could no longer do my job. My industry lost 75% of the employees that do this job. So that's how important your credit score is to you. So fill out those papers, bring them up to me at the break, and I will hand you your credit scoring booklet, and next time we can get into the rest of the other 3 factors and teach you how to make your credit score the most.